Hello, dear one. Welcome to Love M podcast. My name is Marta, and I am a continuous student of life. In my nearly 4 decades of life, I wore a few hats, from a fashion model to a yoga teacher, nutrition coach, transformational game guide, and now a podcaster. But my true passion lies in the evolution of the human soul. On this podcast, I sit down with beautiful human beings from all walks of life to witness real-life testimonies of love, truth, and faith. My hope is that both you and I can learn and evolve from it. Now let's get to it. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. This is Allison. Allison is a vulnerability coach. She's a podcaster herself. She's also a breathwork facilitator. She's life coach. She's so many things. She's life itself with a big heart. So, Ellie, I've invited you because you come across to me as a very heart open, authentic person. But I know that in your life, you've been through some very groundbreaking, soul shaking stuff. And I know that the life you had before was very different from the life you're living now. And I kind of just want to talk about your story. I would like to know who you are, what's your message, what you're doing in the world, and what have you learned? What do you have to say? Maybe we can start with your story.
Yes, let's do that. Let's get this out of the way. It's always a bit difficult. Even if actually the other day I was listening to a podcast myself of a girl that lost her partner. And the podcaster, the host who was interviewing her, said that she thought that probably she was telling the story like it didn't happen to her, like it's like this thing where you kind of remove yourself out of the picture and you watch it from afar, and it's like, yeah, I've been telling this sort of story so many times, and it's like almost it's a movie, and I think it's a way for us, not saying that she's been through the same thing. We're all different individuals, but it's funny how I can say the story many times, and sometimes I got very emotional and sometimes I don't, and I think, yeah, so let's see how I'm gonna feel telling the story once more. But in November 2017, I was on holidays with my loved one, my fiancé at the time. His name is Denis. And we were living in Australia, but we decided to go on a 2 weeks holiday in a beautiful island of Bali. We were at a time in our life where we were organizing our wedding, where we were discussing for the first time having a kid, because we've been living for years in Australia, and we finally had our paperwork sorted. We both had a job that we really much enjoyed. I was in marketing at the time. My partner was working for a Belgian company, developing a business abroad for Australia and New Zealand. So we were really, really lucky. So that was really the first holiday that we were taking after years of big commitment. I was studying again. I did a master in advertising in Australia for us to get our paperwork. So that was the reason, the main reason for us to be in Australia, the study. Then we decided to stay. So really a period where you feel like your life is on track, that everything is what you were imagining as a young girl, like having the Italian wedding, because we wanted to get married in Italy. My parents, everyone is healthy, we are healthy, and we are living the best life on holidays in Bali. And fast forward to the last day of our 2 weeks amazing holidays, where we were telling each other every day how much we loved our life, how much we loved each other, because we were like both of us on a self-development journey already. So, and it wouldn't be lying to say that it's thanks to Denis as well that I kind of arrive in this world, because he had a big transformation when you arrive in Australia. He used to be a professional soccer player. Then he decided to really quit everything and to start fresh and start a job. And he came across like Tony Robbins at the time, and he went to one of his seminars and read a lot of really impactful book. And then he kind of influenced me that way. So we were really enjoying every second of that holiday, being really grateful, telling how we felt, which I'm really looking back, I'm really grateful that we had the opportunity to say a lot of things to each other that we didn't take the time to say to each other in the day-to-day life. And on that last day, he decided to go for a surfing lesson, because even if we were living in Australia, we were not surfing often. So it was like, okay, I'm going to take a lesson. I kind of encouraged him to do it because it was the last day. And the sky was a bit cloudy, but, you know, I don't know, Marta, you've lived in Asia, and you know that, you know, it could be cloudy, it can be gray, but there is still a bit of blue sky. It's a bit confusing. It's not really raining. There is, you know, nothing really to worry about. It's just a angry sky, but not so scary. And I was looking at him surfing, filming, and I realized from far away there were like some lightning, you know, but really far in the middle of the sea. And I remember thinking, oh my God, you are the only one standing on the beach, and that could be dangerous. So just go back and sit. So I just went back, sit. And then his lesson was coming to an end, and he was coming back offshore. And we were looking at each other, and I know he was probably starving because he was all the time hungry and looking at me like, let's go eat together. And we were just looking and smiling at each other. And suddenly I remember like seeing a really bright light and a big, big, big sound. And it was like kind of a lightning that struck him. And obviously my eyes closed because I was quite close to him. So the lightning was very close to my body. So I think, you know, as a reaction, normal reaction, like my whole body shut down. And I remember when I opened the eyes, like he was floating in the water, like face down. So obviously, like this is kind of a situation with a fight or flight mode, you know, and you just like, you don't understand what's going on, but your body just go for it for you. And I just start running and I swim and I turn him back. I turn back his body and I see like the kind of scene that you see in the movie, you know, his eyes were like wide open. And I was like, oh, that's not a good sign. This is something I've seen in movies many times, and it means he's dead. But like, you know, you just don't want to, your brain at that moment, your soul, everything cannot really understand what's going on and doesn't want to. So I drag him back to the beach, and some people came to help. And then straight away, you know, people put ourselves around us, tried to give him CPR. I tried to do it, but, you know, I was too much in shock. I wasn't the right person to do that. And then, you know, my life just turned upside down, and we stayed there for 45 minutes. A lot of people came, but not the ambulance. And after 45 minutes, the ambulance came. And slowly, you know, even if I really much believe in the law of the universe and all of that, and the soul and the afterlife, I was trying to call him back and to focus. And the people around me were telling me, call him back, call him soul. I remember, you know, praying so much, but unfortunately it didn't happen. And we drove back really quickly to the hospital of Denpasar, and on the way there we hit someone, which is also a very traumatic part of the story, because I told them not to stop, because when you are in that flight or fight mode, like you just focus on your loved one, and you just really have a narrow mindset, and you just focus on one thing, which is saving him. And deep down, you know, it's maybe too late, but you don't want to comprehend that. You don't want to come to that conclusion. So I told them not to stop. So I don't know what happened to that person, but that's also a bit of a guilt that I have on my shoulders till today. And then we arrive at the hospital in Denpasar, and this is something now that I say with a lot of, I had to work a lot of myself and relived the scene from afar and remove myself a bit from it. But Balinese people have another way of seeing life, and they believe in afterlife. And, Asian countries in general, they are not so vulnerable in their way of acting, of showing emotion. So for me, being someone who is a vulnerability coach today, but was also a person that was all really vulnerable at that exact moment, it was really difficult for me to comprehend that no one was really talking to me. Like, they left me still with my swimwear, with just this t-shirt on me. I was shaking. No one really looked after me. And then a doctor came with like the paper with the, the sign of the heartbeat. And he just say, with the line that was straight, and say, "He's dead." Just like that, trying to, set me down, kind of the scene you see in movie where we kind of prepare what's coming. I don't know if it would have made it better or not, because he still died. So obviously it would still have been difficult, but the whole process around it was very different from my culture and the way that we perceive relationship or stuff like that. So that's side part of the story that we might come across later on in this conversation. But then, I was in the middle of Bali, not having friends there, not knowing anyone, not knowing what to do, feeling totally out of myself. Just knowing I was in Denpasar, I needed to go back to the hotel that would feel a bit more familiar, but I didn't even know where it was anymore because everything comes really blurry. So the police came into the equation and kind of took the story to an extra level of trauma, because it was only men around me that took me almost half naked in a car that I think were not prepared psychologically to deal with someone who has just lost the love of her life. And they were just screaming at me because I was just telling them, I need to go back to my hotel. I need to go back to my hotel. They were not speaking good English. So, and they told me they needed to go and catch a bad man. And they were like, I don't have time for this. Like, I need to go back to my cocoon. I need to like, I need to go back to this room. So a lot of incomprehension, I think, not understanding each other came into the mix. And after, I think, an hour of dragging me around Denpasar, they finally drove me back to my hotel. And then a beautiful thing happened already. Like, there were like 7 people waiting for me at the hotel. There were people that were on the beach, and they find out, I don't know how, still today, how they find out what my hotel was. But they were there, and they came to my room. Some people, obviously bad news, travel a long way and far. So some people from Australia contacted a surfer friend in Bali, and a lovely man, still don't know his name today, came and spent the night in the other room to make sure I wasn't going to kill myself, which was obviously an option. And then, a beautiful human just came into my room. And even at the time, I wasn't realizing anything. Now, with a bit of step back, I'm like, wow, they were on holidays, and some of them took hours just to come, try to feed me, because I wouldn't eat anything. I wouldn't drink anything. I just wanted to literally die. And then, some wonderful friends that, if they're listening to this podcast, I will forever be thankful for. Like, the 2 couples, they came from Australia to Bali in less than 24 hours. They took a plane, and they arrived. And that was another start of the nightmare, because when you start having people that shouldn't be in Bali, you start of realizing, oof, because
it's
still
becoming more real.
it's getting real. And I realized that moment when they came to the hotel, when I saw the silhouette and I saw them coming up, because I was on the first floor of the hotel, and I saw the first face of my girlfriend, Marcella. I screamed. My friend said, all of them say, I'll never forget this scream. Like this scream was like, I've never heard a human scream like that before. That was really like pain to the biggest level. I don't know how to describe it, but I was really like, oh, fuck, like Dennis is dead. And I had many of encounter like that, that we had to go and see him to the morgue. And then my best friend came from all the way from Canada to pick me up to do the flight back to Belgium with me and then his body. So there were a lot of things that happened.
Thank you for sharing that story. It's a lot. It's a lot. What I want to ask you is, so now you're living in Australia with the love of your life. You're planning your futures together. You're engaged. You're talking about kids. You have a perfect holiday. Everything's fine. Now you go to Bali. This happens. How did that change your life? I mean, obviously that turned your life upside down. But what changed? What change did it trigger in your life? How did it affect you? What was deeply changed in you, and where did your life, in which direction your life went after that?
Oof, that's a big question. I'm sorry, I'm a bit sick. I would say I was maybe naive before. I don't know if naive is the right word, but like you said, I had a life that, my God, lucky me, like so grateful for it that I didn't have big hurdles before. Like, for example, compared to you and your life story and your childhood and what you've been through, I've been lucky enough to not have had experience any of that, had really two loving parents. Of course, you go through breakups and stuff like that. But my God, next to what I was living at that moment, these were nothing. And you really, truly realize also how lucky I was before that moment, and how life can change in a second. This is something through my social media and my coaching that I don't want to freak people out by saying that. But literally now, the person that I am today, I wouldn't say it's in my life 24 hours a day, but I think about it a couple of times every single day. That the life that I have today, that today I'm in a beautiful, loving relationship again, and I feel super lucky enough to be able to live that kind of love again, and we'll get to that maybe at the end of the podcast. But I still have that, I don't know if we can call it a fear, but that thing where I'm conscious, I'm super conscious that could fade away. And the thing that really impacted me negatively is that now, all this expression of, but there is one chance out of a million. Like, let's say, for example, stupid example, but I'm very scared of flying. And I cannot get over this fear because people tell me, but like it's it's the safest, transport in the world. Yeah, okay, great. But there is this part of me, this little voice that's whispering, and I know it's not good, and I'm trying to overcome this, but it's very difficult because there is always this example being like, being struck by the lightning. It's one chance out of I don't know how many, So for me, this thing, everything for me today can happen. But I've started by telling you the negative thing, but the beautiful thing of realizing that it's that now I live life to the fullest. I was already someone that I could tell. My dad always said to me, you want to know how to live? Just take example on Allison. Like, she knows how to live. And that's been something that I think it's part of my personality for a long time. But losing Denis, he really impacted me in that way because he was someone like that. He wanted to live life to its fullest. And, having self-development in his life, the last couple of years, he really, really became, I don't want to say like a monk, but he was really high in terms of his vibration, in terms of his way of thinking, of his discipline. Like, he was not just talking about it, he was living by his principle every single day. And he totally changed. Like, can you imagine? I was with someone who was a professional soccer player. No offense to them, but they are sometimes in a very superficial world. Where it's a lot about money, about what you wear, about who you are, about how much money you do, all of that. And he grew up in that. Then he decided that it's not for him anymore. I think there was also the soul and a bigger life purpose that was waiting for him. And then he became, the last year of his life, it was so not aligned with the person that I first met, but which is wonderful, because we've been together for 11 years and we kind of grew in the same direction, which if it wasn't the case, we wouldn't have been together anymore. But we, luckily enough, we really grow up into that direction. So what really changed is that perspective that, having plan, having expectations. We were planning our wedding. I've pictured it in my mind so many times, how we were going to look like. We even talked about our daughter, her name. We could see her walking all around naked. I always say that, this little piece of life, of both of us. But all of that was a lie. All of that was a lie. And not saying that it's wrong to have dreams and to imagine, because obviously now I'm in touch with the law of manifestation, and I know that you kind of imagine what it would be like, but don't get caught up in that, because this is not reality, not yet. If you want it to be, it's great. And I think the law of manifestation, it's also about the feeling that's going to give you, but it's not so much about being in your head and imagining. It's more into your body, how it's going to make you feel. And I think that's the big difference in my life today. I am not so much into like that imagination, and I used to be a really dreamy girl. It's about like here and now, what I can do with my life, the decision that I can make today that's going to get me closer to that dream, but not being all the time in that dream and not doing anything in the present that's going to get me to that dream, and that's what I used to do a lot. And being more into my body. I was a girl that was a lot in her mind, and that didn't help me at all. Didn't help me at all. Through the grieving, having this voice, this very nasty voice, and this victimization, like, why me? I didn't deserve it. It didn't deserve it. And it's, I think, a normal stage for me, to have to be angry with the world. And we talk a lot about grieving stages and stuff like that. There is stages you have to go through, but it's also like not true, because it's all these things on paper, but the grieving stage for you is not the grieving stage for me, and they can overlap. And I could still have some stuff today that I still haven't figured out, because I believe that when you lose someone so important to you, it's not something you can get over it. You can get over. It's not true. It's just learning to live with it and just take what's good out of it. And for me, what's good, it's like really living in the moment, in the here and now, because that's all we have. And I'm so glad that we've done in these last 2 weeks of our life together. My God, we did it. That's the comfort I get, from knowing that he passed away looking at me, that he passed away doing something he loved. There is also like that guilt, because I pushed him to go surfing. So you kind of, oh my God, this is my fault. I shouldn't. Or you replay the thing in your mind. But this is also being a lot in your mind. And that was his end. And now the stage of acceptance that I kind of have today, it's that this is it, his soul was meant to be here for that amount of time and to touch, oh my God, so many lives the way that he did, because the last couple of years, he was truly like I don't know, he was an admiration. Like a lot of people, I couldn't believe how many people came to the funeral. I had one of his clients. He is a client. He flew from Australia to come for 2 days to be there for the funeral. He said, Denis, touch me. in a profound way. I couldn't know that his funeral was happening in Belgium and not being there. And that was just a kind of a professional. But that's the thing with Denis, it was always way more than professional. You know, there was like, he was giving all the time, like himself totally. And that's also something, you know, he taught me. It's to really go beyond that. And that's also why I think I found coaching and mentoring now as a life purpose. It's because I don't want it to just be a job. This is about my dharma. This is about my mission. This is about not wasting time doing something that's not fulfilling me. And to answer your question again, what changed between the Allison from before and after is that I thought that I had it all before that. And it's amazing, you know, this Allison there was very happy. I believe that with what she knew at the time. But obviously with this tragedy, you cannot see life the same way, and that's okay, and you become kind of a different person. You still have the same set of values, or you have certain values that increase, but the main thing for me was about not wasting my time, my valuable time. This is one of the most precious gifts we've got in life, and I was just wasting it by doing something that I enjoy, you know, marketing, or well, okay, but it wasn't fulfilling me. And I was now, no. And I know I've shocked a lot of people, and they were like, how, you know, you're very lucky. You've got your parents supporting you. I'm like, no. It's a choice. And my parents were not supporting me financially. I took a risk. I was like, I'm going to study coaching. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to work part-time, still doing something that's not fulfilling me, because, you know, not everything can happen overnight. Obviously, we have money. We need to live. We need to pay our rent. But this is something I remind often to my coachee and on social media, is that everything in life is a choice. So I have chosen today to dedicate my life to help other people to not waste their time doing something that is not valuable to them. Because then, like I say, in a split of a second, your life can be turned upside down. And if you're not conscious of who you are truly, what your soul really wants, you're going to arrive at the end of your life, or maybe not the end, just maybe next week, you're going to be about to die. You're going to find out you've got cancer. You've got 3 months to live, and you're going to, what have I been doing with my life? I'm running out of time. And that's not what I want for people. And I'm so glad that Denis, I'm sure, arriving, you know, because he had a lot of gold and a lot of things he still wanted to do. So I got that frustration for him, you know, that he didn't get to do all the things he wanted to do. But I know that he was already arriving at a certain point of his life that I'm sure he was pretty proud. And I am super proud of him, of what he achieved the last just couple of years, the entire year, because he was a beautiful human. But it's crazy, like how much he changed and how many lives he was able to touch. So he's really my forever, how can I say that, guru, in a really beautiful sense of
teacher.
It.
Yeah.
Teacher. Like one of my greatest teacher, for sure.
Yeah. He sounds like an awesome human being that he was.
My God, Martha.
I want to focus for a sec on you now. What brought you to coaching for vulnerability specifically? I mean, I know you spoke about what happened there in Bali and the way it was sort of introduced. Would that be the word to you?
Yeah, I think
was kind of was added on top of the shock that the situation's already been. And was this why you decided to focus on vulnerability? Was this why you are now bringing this gift out into the world? Because you talk a lot about vulnerability. Vulnerability is your thing, right?
That's a very interesting question. And actually, you might have me realize that it might be one of the reasons that I never really brought to the surface. I never really bring to the surface before, which is funny that we get to talk about it on the podcast. And I'm realizing maybe this is because the lack of vulnerability, maybe in the Balinese culture, that really was very difficult for me. Like now, hearing it and processing it as we speak, that could be really one of the main reasons. To be honest, the coaching came into my life linked to, you know, that self-development world and wanting to help other people, especially after the grief, and realizing that a lot of people don't know really who they are, what they want to do with their life, or they lost touch with that. You know, they're doing something, they're taking a direction, and then, you know, they get a bit lost. And when I became a coach, first, I called myself as an alignment coach. Because for me, alignment. Because I was like, oh, in life, what's important is to feel really aligned. For me, that was a really beautiful word that kind of summarized how good in my skin I felt today, because I felt like my values, my life mission, who I am, what my soul wants, it's aligned. I saw that as a line that could sometimes, you know, move. I don't like things that are steady. We are not steady. We're evolving all the time. So this line can be moving and can curve sometimes and take other roads. It's okay. But I really thought, okay, that's kind of a life purpose of everybody, is to feel aligned. But then I started to do some posts about it and all of that. And I was like, oh, but you know, when you really, when I was being coached myself by someone more into like the business, this person was asking me, but what makes you different from other coach? You know, what is your superpower?
I love that question.
But it's true, because we are so many of us on the market. And if you want to have, I think, a successful business, you need to ask yourself that question. And I really didn't, I've never really done it. And I was like, oh, okay, so what is my superpower? And I think a really beautiful exercise for those who are listening, if you want to know your superpower too, would be to talk with the people who know you the most and ask them, you know, how do you see me? What do I bring into your life? That kind of question. And I started to ask my parents, really like my partner, truthful friend. And I kind of realized, my God, this story of mine, that's impacting a lot of people hearing it. I tell it in a way that's, very vulnerable. And people were like, you know, you never really hold it back. And even throughout your grief, you really were in touch with your feelings. You know, you wanted to scream, you screamed. You wanted to cry, you were crying. You wanted to tell me, fuck off, you were telling me to fuck off. You know, you never hold it back. And this is something that's very impressive for me, because even at your lowest, when I've been wanting to kill myself as well, and I've been able to talk about it, you know, and it is something that people, you know, get ashamed, or they just want to keep it really secret. And I was like, wow, okay. Because for me, it was so part of my personality. And I think that's also the subtle thing with your superpower. It's so in tune in you that you don't realize it is your superpower. Because you're like, oh, yeah, like that comes so easy for you. So you think the whole world is like that. And I was like, no, actually, I realized even with Denis, looking back on our relationship, it is something he told me. And actually, it's probably our last conversation before he died, that it was very impactful, that he said to me, Allison, you've got a gift, this gift of being so authentic. He didn't use the word vulnerable, because it wasn't in the pipeline at the time, but I realized this is what he meant. This is my vulnerability. You know, I say when I've got good days, bad days, I also like gather people around that. The fact that I gather people around this vulnerability, I create events, you know, trips, whatever it is, you know, dinner. And I ask deep questions, because I want people to, I don't want to know the surface level of them. I want to know, like, what's your biggest fear? What is triggering you the most? Like, what is your biggest dream? What do you cry about alone in your bed? Like, and people sometimes they find me a bit too much, and that's okay. And then we don't align, and then we don't match, and I go on with my life. But the people that I have today in my life, and we've got one beautiful soul in common, which is Philouz, like, we talk about deep shit. Like we can talk about stupid stuff as well. But this is why I've got like my best friends in my life today. It's this depth of conversation and life and getting beyond and above what the surface level society can give us sometimes. So really, I think it was more linked to me, my vulnerability. And after that, I was like, okay, this vulnerability throughout my grief really helped me. Because I was able, and I've spoken with a lot of therapists, with coach, that I asked them, truly, where do you think I'm at? And they're like, you're very healthy in your mind because you are able to say how you feel at all time. I don't feel like you are restraining anything. We are able to talk about your deepest thought, thing that, some people would want to get to. And I know, and they told me, I know you're not speaking about this only with us, which is, it's beautiful. I think we all need to, professional because they've got a certain way, they've been certified, they studied for that. So I encourage everyone to go and see coach and therapist, psychologist, whatever it is for you. But I was also able to talk about it with my friends, my family throughout the grief. And it really allowed me to not keep anything inside. And I really realized that I wanted to bring this out of people, that through my coaching, I wanted to bring like that vulnerability, because for me, this is not only a superpower for me, it's a superpower of just being human, being able to talk about everything that's going on. So you don't hold it, because once you voiced it and you allow yourself to live it, it kind of, it doesn't disappear. It's not about disappearing. We need to live this thing, but it kind of, you give them a bit less importance.
Ellie, this is great. This is great. This is great. First of all, I resonate with you so much on one level. Some of the things that you were saying about suddenly being very aware of how life can terminate so any moment, and that can send you straight into fear, and that can block you from living in a big way, which was a huge realization for me recently, because when I lost my mother at 17, well, 18, I just turned 18, I lost my mother, and I froze. At that time, when I was 18, I was a kid, obviously growing up in the coming out of the USSR and into a newborn country of Ukraine, into independent Ukraine, right? So, it's not the first world countries, and coming out of there where I came out from, they don't. I mean, okay. Maybe in the other countries too. It's just that maybe the thing of the past that people were not sharing feelings. Like feelings were a taboo. You were supposed to do your feelings on your own, right? So growing up with parents like this, with grandparents like this is what you learn. This is how you learn to be. And 18 years old me just turned 18 in September. November, I lose my mother. And I remember that moment to right now. I remember it right now in the middle of the night. I remember my grandma, I hear her walking to check on my mom. And it's just the walk. It's just the sound. I hear it. I'm sleeping. And then I hear the light. She turns on the light. And then she goes back with a faster pace. And I realize it. She almost runs back. And I realize, well, by that time, because my mom was sick for the whole year, I was kind of living in expectation of the worst, but trying to, there's always some hope. This is something you never want to believe in, right? Like, even though you're very scared of it, And even though many things can point towards that outcome, there's still, like you said, like you're, nope, not here, not online. Nope, she's gonna be, everything, it's gonna be fine, right? But it's like that funny space of knowing and hoping,
Hmm.
you know? And I remember that moment. And I remember that I just got up, I sat up in my bed, and I was just this
Hmm.
empty, just empty, frozen. And it's funny that I'm 37 years old now, and it's only this year that I've realized that my whole life I've been scared to live because of that one night. I wasted so many opportunities. I wasted so much adventure in my life. I gave up on so many dreams because of that one night. And it was funny when I realized that, when you can see there's this, I don't know, I'm a like you, I love wisdom, and I go everywhere in search for wisdom. I learn from life, I learn from philosophy, I learn from everywhere I can learn from, right? But at some point of my life, I realized, okay, there's so many self-development books. It's not even funny. And if you feed your brain too much with that, it can be overwhelming, and it can end up as a negative thing because it's just going to be mess. Like, okay, what, what's happening? Too much. I've been there. So I've decided, instead of going through all this modern philosophy, so to speak, books, I will go to the roots. And I went to the Bible. I went to the Buddhism. I went to Hinduism. I went to the roots. And I was so intimidated because I thought, oh my God, that's going to be challenging. I probably won't be able to understand anything. And I was hesitating for about a few years before I actually touched the Bible, for instance. But I am studying it now, and there's so much that I'm learning from it about love, about life, about relationships, about everything. It's just this golden nugget that all wisdom comes from, like everybody reads the Tao, they read the Bible, they read the Quran, they read all these books, they get inspired, and then they translate this philosophy in their language, right? The language of authenticity. So coming back to I realized that I was scared of living. I was 37. I am 37. I had this incredible life. I was, since 18 years old, I was traveling the world, working as a model. I've seen so much. I've done so much. Yet I wasn't living. I was taking the safe path in life, which felt suffocating, made me feel so unfulfilled, made me feel so small. It created a lot of insecurity, low self-esteem, and just low self-worth, because I wanted to do so many things, and I was too scared. I never allowed myself to do them. And when you do that for too long, guess what you're going to build? You're going to build a strong belief that you can't do anything. So I realized that this year. So funny. so funny. I went for a shoot in the Maldives. And as I realized that, I'm like, okay, what's the scary thing? I'm going to do it. I went to swim with sharks.
And how was it?
I was incredibly anxious, but I did it and it felt so good. I mean, it wasn't, don't get me wrong, it wasn't a tiger shark or a great white or anything like that. But there were quite a few, the sharks the size of me.
Wow. Mm.
And I was incredibly proud of myself. I was just incredibly proud of myself. And what a big, huge learning it was for me. When you're scared of dying, you're scared of living.
Definitely. And then you're scared of loving too, because this is
Oh,
linked.
my God. My God.
Yeah.
So tell me, Ellie, what's your life like now? Fast forward, what?
Fast forward
Six,
to
six years?
almost 6 years. Yeah, in November will be 6 years. It seems like yesterday, and at the same time, I feel like I've lived 10 lives from
Yeah,
that
me
moment.
too.
Crazy, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Today I live in Mexico, so I've
Mhm.
left Australia, which I might be back at some point because I love it. And this is also something, a little learning. I used to do a lot of things around Denis and for him, and it was also a younger me that was building her life a lot for my partner and not enough for myself. And I'm sorry, I'm doing a side thing, but that's also another beautiful lesson of wisdom I wanted to share with the people listening, is that I've realized after his death that I needed to get back and to really think about myself, you know, because if I was so much building my life and my, how can I say that, validation on someone else, and this person disappear, then my God, my self-esteem, my self-love,
Then you disappear.
I disappear totally. And this is what happened. I went through a really bumpy road. I ended up in a toxic relationship because my self-love.
Haven't we all been there?
When you don't love yourself enough, you know, everyone is talking about this. Oh, some people say bullshit of self-love, but for me, it's really not bullshit. And when you start understanding really what it means for yourself, your own definition, and you can understand that it's about placing boundaries, doing things for you, and not just only for others, then you start to really live. If we want to talk about start living, it's really placing yourself at the center of your life. And this is something I wasn't always doing with Denis. He was teaching me that because he was someone who had a lot of self-love and also taught me that jealousy, you know, it's a lack of self-love and all of these beautiful lessons. He told me. So I was on that road, but obviously when he died, I had to fast forward and be like, okay, Allison, so who are you? What do you like? What do you want to do with your life? And on that self-learning road, and unfortunately met someone that was really toxic. And I just wanted, you know, love and affection and finding a life partner because I didn't know what it was to be single, because I was with Denis for 11 years and I met him when I was 20. So, you know, like my teenager years and my 20s and early 30s, I was in a relationship. But this toxic relationship taught me a lot, all the things that I didn't want to have, which lead me today to a beautiful and healthy relationship with a man here in Mexico. So I've moved. I launched my own business 6 months ago, a bit more than 6 months ago, of coaching. I hosted my first retreat in Europe with our dear friend Philou. So really feeling fulfilled, feeling happy, feeling it's possible to overcome a tragedy like I did. But like I said a bit earlier, you never really get over it. I'm just learning to live with these lessons of wisdom, with like looking at really not the fear, but trying to get the positive thing that it brought me, like living more into the moment, doing the thing that I want to do. Like, we're going to get married at the end of the year. So I was like, no, I'm not pushing it again, because with Denis, we've kept pushing. Oh, no, we don't have the money. We don't have this. We don't have that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to tell you, it's never going to be the right time. So you need to,
Mm-hmm.
at some point, you know, set a timeline for yourself and do it. So this is how I'm living at the moment, in the moment, traveling a lot, because this is what I love doing. I know a lot of people think, how is she doing it? She seems all the time on holidays. She seems to have a lot of time for herself. And yes, I do, because that's the way I've decided to plan my life. This is about now a life mission. This is about me at the center of my life, doing a job that gives me purpose and happiness, being in a relationship that doesn't become my identity, but I can be totally myself. I can be vulnerable. I can grow, and being with someone who's not going to stop that fearless person that I can be sometimes. And it can be a challenge in our relationship, which I found really beautiful, because he's got another upbringing. He's Brazilian. So sometimes, you know, we can confront each other with our boundaries. But I feel like communication is always a great way to set what we expect, and we talk a lot. But I don't let this relationship stopping me in any way if I want to do something, and, you know, as long as it's respectful. So this is where I'm at today.
An interesting thing that I'm observing is that when you, and this is about self-love, and I love it. Yes, self-love is about getting to know yourself and learning to love. We're not talking about narcissistic tendencies. Love. The way you love your own little child. Learning to love yourself and filling your cup first. But what's interesting in that, once you learn to do that, once you learn to love you, once you prioritize you and put your filling your cup first, then everything that overflows, you can't help but share. So it becomes actually about others. And that's what I'm observing with you. Before, your life was perfect, but it was about you. And after, what I'm seeing that tragedy triggered in you is that reshaping you in the way that you had to see yourself, find yourself, and started to give back to the world. And this is beautiful.
Thank you, Martha. Thank you.
And I wonder, Ellie, do you have a message for the world now? What do you live from right now?
Love. Like, love is the answer to everything. Like, if I've got a message for anyone listening today, it's like, don't be scared to love fully. You know, I've been in a loving relationship for 11 years, and yes, the outcome of it was very painful, because when you talk about really big love, and the level of love is quite equal to the level of pain you're gonna feel, but that's worth it. The pain that I've been through, the life lessons, because that's what I've decided as well to gain from that, is to look as well at the positive, because I cannot change what happened, but what I can change is my way of responding to that event, you know, as deciding to be like, okay, am I going to please place myself as a victim, or am I going to place myself as a winner, as a warrior, someone who has been through the worst, but through that as allow herself to live throughout all the emotion, but also like decide to keep the good, really the beautiful lesson of wisdom, like I like to call them. And that allowed me today to love fully as well. I'm going all in this new relationship. I'm giving it all. And I know a lot of people would be scared to do that. Be like, oh my God, can you imagine? And sometimes, don't get me wrong, I get that fear. I look at him and I cry and I hold this face and I'm like, my God, if something would have happened to you, like, how am I going to survive that a second time? But then there is that little voice that's telling me, even obviously it's not what I wanted to happen, but I also know it's a possibility because everything can happen. And that's also an outcome of going through what I've been through. I also got that little voice being like, you can do this. You are strong enough. Don't allow yourself to live this moment, to love. And if something happen, we'll get there when it's there. You know what I mean? Like, let's not create this fear, this worst case scenario, like you were, like talking about when you were talking about your mom, because, you're living out of the worst case scenario. And I know this thing quite well because my dad is like that. He's been living almost his entire life thinking always of the worst case scenario. So he's not living, he's not enjoying the moment. And that stress that you're creating within yourself, even if the worst case scenario hasn't happened yet, but your body is feeling it. So you are you are making your body going through the worst case scenario. And it hasn't happened yet. And it might never happen. So why are you doing this to yourself? So I've decided to really now being more present, being in the moment. And this is my advice for people, is really to find a way to feel present, not only with their mind, but with their body. And if there is something that could change your life, is meditation, taking the time to really sit down with your emotion. So that would be another message, but don't be scared to love fully, because that's what love, that's how, that's what helped me to go through this whole grieving process, is knowing that he loved me so much, that I loved him, that I had people around me who were supporting me, who were loving me, who were there for me, that today I'm in this loving relationship again, that I want to be a mom, that I want to give that love to another human being. Love is always the answer. So don't be scared to be vulnerable and share your feeling with the world.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I wonder, I think I know the answer, but I still wonder. If you were to time travel right now, all the way back, is there anything that you would have done differently?
No, not one single thing, because that's the beauty of life. I am who I am today because I've been through what I've been through. And maybe if I change one single thing, it's the butterfly effect. I might not have met Denis. I wouldn't have that time with him. And then from that, I wouldn't have met the other wonderful men in my life, because I had the chance after Denis to meet two people really wonderful and that have taught me so much. So changing something in the past means that would be changing my present. And I love who I am today, and I love my life, and I love my partner. I love who I became. So no, my answer is no.
That's beautiful. I love to hear so many love words. I love it. I love it. Ellie, thank you so much for coming up here and sharing your story. It's beautiful to see your authenticity. And I totally agree with Denise that you are just a spark, and just a spark that the way it is. And it's inspiring. I am vulnerability might not be my message, but my message is authenticity and self-love. And you are definitely translating that message as well. Whatever you call it, but I see it in you. And thank you so much for showing, for being a role model, I guess, for this 1 hour for us. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, Marta, for having me. Thank you for also bringing that message to the world, and keep shining and keep going with this new project. I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thank you, darling. Thank you for listening to this episode of Love M Podcast. If you found it valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more content on personal well-being. Stay blessed. I love you.